Hi, this is David again. I wanted to talk on the subject, have the Mormons done their fair share in defending the United States? They certainly wave the red, white, and blue all over. They dress in flags, talk in flags, and talk and talk and talk. But let me go back and review what I learned at BYU, their own university. And they taught me not to think, but to bow my head and say yes. I wasn't taught to think until I got my first master's degree. So here's what I want to review. Only the things I've seen and I've heard. No other kinds of things, okay? So how can I be wrong? This is my experience. I remember when I was a student at BYU, I had a wife and one little child, and I think I must have been a junior at BYU, and I got a draft letter from the Utah Salt Lake City Draft Board. I go, holy shit, don't they know who I am? I'm white and delightsome. I'm not going to war. Well, they kind of agreed, but they wanted it to look like they were being fair. So I went up there, and I remember, because it was a shocker, kind of like when you have to get dressed in 7th grade and take a shower with all the other kids. They don't do that anymore, but in my day, you know, you could be very embarrassed with your maturity. Anyway, I went up to the draft board, and I go, there must be a misunderstanding. They said, shut your mouth. Get in line. Ooh, okay. So I'm going in there, and they say, have you ever had trouble with your feet? I said, every day. Do you have trouble with your arms? Every day. Are you mentally ill? From birth. Are you a danger to our country if you were in the service? Yes, I would be. So they didn't believe me. So I had to run around in there naked, and that was embarrassing. They said, take off your underwear or your garments. And I said, could it be one or the other? No, both. Both. So anyway, I went in there, and then I went back home, and I said to myself, Self, you're on the list. Get a roadmap to Canada. I love the Canadians. I love them more then. So I looked around, and I said, oh, I can get a student deferment. Shit, I'm a student, and BYU helped me get the information and everything because I was white and delightsome. So the government gave me a deferment because I was a student. Well, then pretty soon, I think it was Kennedy, I don't remember which president, but pretty soon the student deferment died. I don't want to die with it, so now I was looking for other deferments. Well, now there's a father's deferment. Hey, that's for me. I'm the father. So I put in again, and I was postponed going into the draft because I was a father. Not a very good one, but it didn't say that on the form. It just said, have you fathered someone, and are you taking care of them? And yeah, so anyway, I had the father's deferment. And then I guess the father's deferment, as I remember, ran out too, and it came in. I think it was Nixon that came in with the draft lottery. Now I've never been lucky with 5 divorces. No, you're not very lucky. So I was waiting for my draft number, and it was 212. Well, now I was out of the Ventura, California draft board, and so I was watching every month. They take like 30 or 40 a month, and you were waiting for your number. Kind of like in the mafia, your number is up. And I'm saying to myself, Self, get a damn suitcase and get ready to go to Canada. And there will be a forgiveness always when you chicken out and you don't go. Well, anyway, I waited and waited, and pretty soon my draft board, my number was 215. 215, and so I saw my friends going to the death squad first. And so my board went to 200, and I said, okay, this is vacation time to Canada, because the next month my ass is gone. And so they had a peace conference and whatever, and finally the war was over, at least, yeah, it was officially over, I guess. And I didn't have to go, and I didn't have to be embarrassed that I was a chicken, and I went to Canada. So when people say, you know, how did you get out of the draft, I said, many, many ways. So anyway, the point is this. Brigham Young wanted the state of Utah to be called Deseret, the state of Deseret. And Brigham Young had big ideas of a theocracy. The Mormons have always wanted to control the world. Their doctrine, I was in there for 50 years, folks, is that there is a stone cut out of the mountain, which is the Book of Mormon out of Cumorah, and it's going to fill up the whole world. Now, if that ain't a theocracy, go look it up on the internet. They've always wanted to be a theocracy. Brigham Young ruled like in terror. He ruled in terror. The Mountain Meadows Massacre is a perfect example of Brigham Young and how he thought. And he was secret. Now, the Mormons were not popular in Missouri. They left because they were being obnoxious. And the Missourians ran them out of there. Joseph Smith spent, I don't know, I think it was 15 Christmases in jail. Is this a guy you want to follow? He's screwing 14-year-old girls and says, well, the laws of God are above the laws of the land. Well, evidently, he's with God now. Maybe God has accepted him, or maybe he's, you know, running from the pitchfork, I hope. Anyway, they got thrown out of Missouri. They got thrown out of Illinois. They come out to Utah, and they're persecuted. All the way from the Midwest, they're persecuted. How? The cows mooing at them? The bears chasing them? The wolves chasing them? The cold? They're not unique. Every pioneer that came from the Midwest and the East that went to California, the Donner Party, I don't think they're complaining about persecution. What is it with the Mormons? They have to be persecuted. And if they're not, they'll go like this to the community. And then pretty soon the community says, get out of here. See? We're persecuted. We're persecuted. And off they go. Well, during the time that they left Illinois and Nauvoo, their men didn't serve in the military. The only military that their men served in was the theocracy of Joseph Smith. He was the commander-in-chief. He was running for president of the United States. I think Mitt Romney was going to be his VP. I don't know. But he had a militia. A real militia. They had guns, I guess. They had horses, and he was in charge of the militia. In fact, he really believed the militia was coming to get him out of Carthage. And the militia guy said, no, we're not going to get killed. Goodbye. The only time that the Mormons were in uniform was for the Mormon Church. It's a theocracy. It's like the Catholics in the Crusades. Well, they went off to Utah. There was no military in Utah. So the government, the United States of America government, not the puppet government of the Mormon Church, said that they wanted, now I'm using my memory here. If I'm wrong, Mormons, good Lord, get on my comments and straighten me up. But it seems that I remember that the U.S. government was asking for volunteers from the Mormons to help fight, God, I think it was the Mexicans. I think it was maybe the War of 1812. That would be about right. And so the Mormons wouldn't give the government anybody. Because Mormons don't die for freedom. They hide. They hide. Like Joseph Smith. He hides all the time. Well, finally, Brigham Young, I guess from social and economic and political pressures, decided to form the Mormon Battalion. Now, if that ain't marching orders for what was it, the 2,000 stripling warriors, good Lord. So they got a few Mormon guys together. I don't remember. It wasn't a big number. Gosh, I think it was under 400, 300. And they started marching, I believe, towards Mexico. And they were singing, I think, Come, Come, Ye Saints, and All is Well in Zion, and we're going to go back. So They never saw a day of battle. There was not one shot fired except at themselves when they accidentally set their guns off. The Mormons have not died once for this country, and they wave the flag and wear red, white, and blue. Now, let me tell you how clever they really are, and this is cult shit. I got out of the Vietnam War. How many black kids do you think got killed in Vietnam because I was white and delightsome? I didn't go over there. And I had children. All those young men that didn't have white skin, they went to Vietnam. They didn't have a father's deferment. They didn't have a college deferment. They had no deferment. And they had no parents, no education, and no one around them to teach them how to get the hell out of the draft. Well, guess what? I don't know who's ever thought about this, but you know me. I think a little differently. Missionaries in World War I, World War II, in Vietnam, in Korea, and the Iraq, and now the Afghanistan wars, the missionaries are preachers. They're exempt from the draft. They're exempt. Has one of Romney's sons ever been in the service? No. How about the sons of the general authorities? How many of their sons died in any war, anywhere? Close to zero. The Mormons are clever as hell, because what they do is they call their missionaries priests. They're ordained priests. Now, the Catholic Church, they really ordain priests. There's only a few of them, and they do go to school to learn how to be a priest. And they're in charge of a whole segment of their congregations. But the damn Mormon missionaries were 19 years old, the perfect draft age. And the church and the parents of the Mormons pushed the boys out on missions because they were exempt. They were exempt. So don't tell me, I'm just a little animated. I didn't take my meds yet. Don't tell me how patriotic and how the Mormons have suffered. There are more blacks, Hispanics, and other minorities that fought our wars. The Mormons hid in Utah. The Mormon battalion was formed just as the war was ending. Brigham knew they would never shoot a bullet. Johnson's army came across from the East Coast to Utah to stop the silliness of polygamy and the lying of the Mormon prophets that said, oh, we don't do it anymore. There weren't any Mormons in that Johnson's army, was there? Were there any other Mormons in the federal army at that time? No. They were all on missions. They were hiding in Utah. And the church and Brigham Young and the organization kept them from being killed because they wanted their sperm to make new and white and delightsome children, and the hell with the minorities. The hell with the minorities. And that has been the attitude of the Mormon Church ever since I was in there for 50 years. We took advantage of every opportunity to send the minorities. And if I'm lying, I'm dying. When I was at BYU, the blacks got the priesthood. No, let's see. In 72, I graduated. I think the blacks got the priesthood in 78. And I do remember people hated us. When I drove to California, between breaks, I had to change license plates because Mormons from Utah were going to get beat up in California. My point is this. If you think the Mormon Church has shared in the blood of defending the freedoms of the Constitution of the United States, you need to get on the computer. You need to take a look at how many Mormons have died. Now, the Mormons got caught with their panties down just a little bit. And this is a phrase of the FLDS. Bleeding the beast. Bleeding the beast means rip off as much as you can from the U.S. government and use it for yourself. As an organization, the Mormons believe in that. They don't say that as overtly as the FLDS do, They believe in bleeding the beast, lying for food stamps, lying for welfare, lying, and getting the money from all of the American people who are working hard and don't have 19 kids and 14 wives, and want to share in the prosperity of those that are working, and the Mormons get to sit home and look out the window. Now, I have to be honest here, because I've said on another video, I went and explored and took lessons with the FLDS Church. I wanted to know what they believed in, and I went in their homes, met their wives, met their children, had dinner at one of the leaders' homes, etc. I'm not sure there's as much corruption as some people say. Now, there is some corruption with bleeding the beast, but I didn't see it. Now, I wasn't in the intimacies of their finances, so I can't say. But I want to be fair, that when I visited them and their families, they were not on welfare. These people were dentists, doctors, lawyers, and they were supporting their family. Now, the rest of the little peons, I don't know. I didn't see them. But bleeding the beast is certainly a concept of Mormonism, and is certainly more overt in the FLDS. Now, a lot of the Mormons wanted to wave the flag, but they don't want to get killed, so they joined the National Guard. Well, back in the days, the National Guard didn't do anything. Basically, you know, they sat at home, and every third Saturday or whatever it was, they went down on, you know, practice. They drove around in jeeps and threw bombs at each other and came home. And they got an enormous amount of money every month for that. And if the U.S. ever needed them, then they would be called up. But they never thought they were going to be called up. And for years and years, they weren't called up in the Vietnam War, that I remember. We didn't call up National Guard. But suddenly, some of the presidents now have called up the National Guard. So all these Mormon guys that thought, well, gee, I'm going to be in the National Guard, bleed the beast, have a camp out every third Saturday, and, you know, we'll make some extra money. Their ass is over in Vietnam now. So it's not as funny as it was before. And so now, are the Mormons sharing in the signing up and volunteering? I doubt it. The only way a Mormon is killed in a war these days is he or she had signed up for the National Guard, they're under contract, and the United States government called them up, and they've been killed in Afghanistan or Iraq. So, Mormons, please, if I'm wrong, get on my videos. You know damn well I never erase your comments, even the crude, stupid ones. I leave on there so people can see what you're really like. If the Mormon battalion shot one gun, tell 70,000 people I'm wrong. If Johnson's army was not coming clear across the United States to invade and take over the temples and property of the church because they weren't living the law of the land, which they always say, we believe in living the law of the land and being subject. This is 13th Article of Faith, or it might not be 13th, and being subjects to kings, priests, and, you know, the laws. We obey the law of the land. Where? Where? I've never seen it. Anytime they can get away with a tax break, anytime they can get away with not sending their boys off and girls off to war, anytime that they can, you know, rip off the poor people and give money to the rich people, they do. So don't tell me. You Mormons, write in. Please write in and straighten me out. The Mormon Church has not done its full share of dying and bleeding and fighting for the United States. The only thing the Mormon Church will ever fight for is a theocracy that they own and that they're in charge of. They do not obey the law of the land. They do not think that they're subject to kings, priests, presidents, etc. Their article of faith is what they say. Their history is what they do. They're not a fair people. They're a cult.